Want to know how to record video with the Nikon D5200? Well, this video is all about the camera settings you'll need in order to do that. Here's a quick rundown of what you're going to learn. Check it out. The first thing you want to set is your video region. Choose PAL or NTSC depending on where you are in the world. This is where you set the level of your microphone, sensitivity. Set your white balance because this will give you correct colors in your video. What your shutter speed does is it controls motion blur of your video. Set your shutter speed to double your frame rate. Having a wider aperture will of course give you that nice blurry background. I suggest you don't use autofocus. Another really important part of your video is of course audio. There's a microphone input on the side of the camera. Don't use the internal microphone. Hi there, Barry Callister for Barry Callister Photography, giving you hints, tips and tricks for better nature photography. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you found me. Here on this channel I do gear reviews, camera tutorials, Lightroom and Photoshop tutorials and so much more. So if you're new, please consider subscribing. Just a quick note to my subscribers also, thank you for your patience. I know I haven't had a video out for quite some time. I had a little bit of a serious health scare before Christmas and it kind of put things into perspective and things that were important aren't important anymore, and so I'm still going to be releasing videos, just not every week. It might be 1 or 2 a month. I'll see how I go. So thank you for your patience. Also thank you for getting me over the 100 subscribers. I'm stoked. Let's keep it going. This video is actually a subscriber request. A couple of people have asked me if I could do a video about how to set up the D5200 in order to record video. So let's jump into it. Now, first of all, there's a few settings within the camera that you need to change before you start filming video. So let's take a look at those. So the first thing you want to set is your video region. So hit your menu button up here on the left. Go to your setup menu with the little spanner icon. Go across here to video mode. Cross again and choose PAL or NTSC depending on where you are in the world. If you don't know what your region is, you can just Google that, and that is set and done. The next thing you want to set is your movie settings. So go up to your shooting menu, which is the little camera icon. Go across. Now if it's not on movie settings already, it might be at the top of the menu like this, so you can either go up one or go all the way down. It's up to you, but there are 2 pages there you have to get through first. Select movie settings, go across with your selector, and here is where you set your frame size and your frame rate. So as you can see, we've got 1920 by 1080 50i, 1920 by 1080 25p, and so on. Now these might be different depending on what region you've chosen. These are the settings you've got here for the PAL region. Now 50i, the I and the P at the end of the frame rate stand for interlaced or progressive. It's just the way the camera deals with the footage. Interlaced is not as good a quality as progressive, so I suggest you choose a progressive one, but it's up to you. So here I'm going to choose to shoot in 1920 by 1080 at 25 frames a second, so I just click the OK button there for that to select that. Down here you've got movie quality. You can select high or normal. Of course I suggest you select high. The microphone here, this is where you set the level of your microphone sensitivity. So if you've got an external microphone, you want to turn the microphone to off because that's the internal microphone of the D5200. And then your manual sensitivity, you can adjust up or down here, and you watch the levels down here at the bottom, and you want it to come to about -12 there, or between -12 and 0. You don't want to get it above that because it'll do what's called clipping and it'll sound pretty bad. So set that there. That's all good. Down the bottom here we have manual movie settings on or off. I put that on because if you don't do that, the camera will choose the movie settings for you. So with this manual movie settings, just a note, you cannot then change your aperture in live view. So if you need to change the aperture, you have to flick out of live view in order to go back. So I'll just show you how that works. So we go to live view here, and if I try to change my aperture, you can see nothing's happening. It's staying on 4.5. So if I flick out of live view, I can change the aperture there to whatever I need and then go back in. So that's the only hassle there, but you do need to have it on manual movies, on the manual movie settings. And that's all you need to do for those settings and you're good to go. Now, one very important thing you need to do before you start to film video with your D5200 is to set your white balance, because this will give you correct colors in your video. You can leave it set to auto, that will work in a lot of situations, but if you want to get it spot on, get yourself one of these. This is a white balance card. It's 50% gray on one side, white on the other. You take a photo with you holding this in the scene and then set the white balance within the camera, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Now, to set your white balance, you want to go into your menu by pushing the menu button. Find your shooting menu, which is the camera icon there. Go across and down to white balance. Scroll across there as well. Now, you've got all these settings in here that you can set here. You can also set these from your live view screen. You've got auto, incandescent fluorescent, direct sunlight flash, cloudy shade. Now, down here at the bottom, you'll find your preset manual. So you can either use measure. This is where the camera will choose something white from the scene, it'll measure it and calculate it automatically, or you can use a photo. So if you go across, you can select your image. So you just scroll through your photos, and I've got me there holding the white card. I click OK, and you just say this image, click OK, and there you go, your white balance is set from that image and you're good to go. So once you've got all those settings done within the camera, the next thing you need to do is to have your camera in manual mode, because we need to control shutter speed, aperture and ISO independently of each other. So take a deep breath and turn that dial to M. Now, with the D5200, you can't record video unless you're in live view, so flick that lever on the top of your camera to put it into live view. Now, when you're filming video with your DSLR, what your shutter speed does is it controls motion blur of your video. So to get a nice cinematic kind of motion blur to your footage, what you need to do is set your shutter speed to double your frame rate. So if you're filming at 25 frames a second, like I am here, set your shutter speed to 1/50th of a second. If you're filming at 60 frames a second, set your shutter speed to 1/20th of a second. So it needs to be double or as close to as you possibly can. If you're filming at 24 frames a second, you can't set your shutter speed to 1/48th of a second, so just 1/50th will do. It's got to be double or close to. Of course, you don't have to do this, but this will give you the best kind of motion blur, cinematic kind of motion blur to your footage. If you want to explore other shutter speeds, slower than double or more than double, feel free. If you like the look of that footage, if it's what you're going for, awesome. But the general rule is double your frame rate. Now, with aperture, what you want to do is choose the widest aperture that you possibly can. This will help you to get more light into the camera and enable you to shoot at a lower ISO. Of course, it depends on the look of the footage you're going for. Having a wider aperture will of course give you that nice blurry background. I'm filming at f4.5 here, and if I was further from my backdrop here, it would be nicely blurred out and beautifully soft. If that's the look you're going for, great, use a low aperture. If not, you'll need to use, if you want your background in focus, you'll need to use f8, f10, something around there, which will mean you'll have to film at a higher ISO, but that's just the trade-off that you get. Now, moving on to your ISO, this is where you'll get your correct exposure from. So check your exposure meter. If you're overexposing, lower your ISO. If you're underexposing, you'll have to raise your ISO. If you find you're overexposing and you're already at 100 ISO, which is your lowest ISO on the D5200, what you're going to have to do is, if you're outside, maybe film in a shadier position. If you're inside, turn off a couple of lights, or you will have to make your aperture a bit smaller and just sacrifice your nice blurry background. If you're underexposing, raise your ISO until you get that perfect exposure. If you find that you're having to raise your ISO up to 3200, 6400, somewhere around there, and you don't want your footage to be really grainy, what you're going to have to do is add more light. In this setting here, I'm indoors, I've got the curtains closed, I've got 3 powerful lights in front of me, so I'm adding a lot of extra light to the scene. So as I said before, I'm at f4.5, and the lowest ISO the camera will allow me to get perfect exposure at is ISO 500. So that's what I'm stuck with for this footage. So it's just a trade-off of what you want the footage to look like, how much light you can get onto the scene, how much light you can take out of the scene. You just have to play around with all of that until you get your correct exposure. Now, a quick tip about focusing when you're filming your video, I suggest you don't use autofocus, because what happens with the D5200 is it will focus hunt, which means if I had it on autofocus right now and I was moving my hands as I'm talking, as we often do, it would be trying to focus on my hands, and then when I stop, it'll focus on my face. So it constantly hunts for what it's supposed to be focusing on. This is a common problem with the D5200 I've noticed from Googling a lot. So I suggest setting it to manual focus and either using your focus ring or just leaving your camera stationary or moving your camera in and out yourself so you don't get that focus hunting problem. Because the focus motor in the lens is very loud as well, it will ruin your audio too. So I suggest not using autofocus. Another really important part of your video is of course audio. The D5200 does have an inbuilt microphone, but it's pretty terrible and I don't suggest using it if you're doing, it's fine for like home videos or if you're just mucking around, but if you're doing some serious video, get yourself an external microphone. There's a microphone input on the side of the camera, so you can use that. That's what I've got my lav mic plugged into right now. And you can get other external microphones or recording devices that will record the audio for you and you can sync it up later. Don't use the internal microphone. So there you go, that's how you set up your D5200 to record video. It's pretty involved, I know there's a lot to do and a lot to remember, so if you can't remember something or you have a question about something I said or did in the video, please let me know in the comments below and I'll get back to you real soon. If you liked the video, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below to say that you loved it, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe and ding that little bell so that you get notified next time I make a video. I promise it won't be so long between videos this time. I'm Barry Callister for Barry Callister Photography. Get out there, take some wicked shots, and I'll see you soon.